Welcome to episode 213 of the Center Ring Esports podcast presented by Alt. This is going to be the best episode ever. We will catch you up on the early rounds of VCT, went exactly as everyone predicted, so no surprises there. Also, a little bit of Yikes of the week. We will also, for real this time, play our interview that we had with our good friend Jay on his show. So we'll replay that here. And light e-news to wrap things up. But before that, let me tell you about the show sponsor in Alt. AltEsports.com is where you need to be to get your top-of-the-line esports apparel. The seasons are changing. And pending where you're at, if you're in the good Lone Star state like us, spring is already here. Meaning it's only like 2 weeks until summer's here because it's already warm out there. So get yourself new season apparel, altesports.com. You let them know the Center Ring Boys sent you.
It's DDK, and you're listening to TCR.
Okay, so let's start.
What is up, everyone? Hello and welcome. Welcome back to another edition of the Center Ring Esports podcast, aka TCR, aka your favorite esports podcast presented by Alt. Episode 313 coming to you live and or pre-recorded from an undisclosed location. The date, March 14th, 2021. The time, 7:50 p.m. Daylight's not saving time? I will be on my deathbed and still not know which one's which.
I'm ready for it to just end at this point.
Like,
do we really need this anymore? It was like for farmers back in the day, you know? It's
yeah.
not...
I think we've all evolved past having to change a clock to know when's the best time to plant. Why not just adjust when we do things? You know, like, go.
Look, having a kid has changed my perspective even more on this. You know, like it's still bright outside. I'm trying to put him to sleep. Not very helpful.
The little ones don't adjust as well.
They don't seem to care, you know? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, that is very true. And given the extra early start time for us can mean only one thing, and that's one of us is on solo duty. So we're a race against time before babies decide it's time to end the show. So let's get this going. Follow us on Twitter at The Center Ring. Our website, tcr.gg, has all the other links you need there, as I'm about to die. Discord, join there, get in the conversation, all that fun stuff. Support us on Patreon if you feel like it. My name is Tim. I'll be your captain for this journey into esports. And alongside me, as always, is my best friend, my brown friend. It's Anuj. What's up?
Happy Sunday, dude.
Happy Sunday.
Best day of the week, you know? Start work again. Get those Sunday night butterflies.
I have a hot opinion that Tuesday is actually the worst day of the week. Most people will tell you Monday. I say Tuesday's the worst day of the week.
I mean, Monday is pretty rough.
But I feel like
you
know Monday's gonna suck. Tuesday you are recovering from the suckiness of Monday.
What's the best day of the week?
I would have to say hump day. Wednesday. Because by Wednesday I'm already mentally checking out.
So you're checking out too early. The best day of the week is Thursday because you know the weekend's around the corner. Friday, if you're doing a good job, you're probably getting out a little bit early. So in your mind, you're kind of getting into that mode already. So Thursday is like a solid day.
On Wednesday, I'm already looking ahead. I'm like, all right. Because Friday, I'm done. You're not getting anything out of me on Friday. Like, I am done. I'll be there. I'll be a warm body. I'll be a bench player if you need me to be, but I am...
Like, sub me in if you really need me. Like,
right. Yeah, like, if you need me...
Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. Like, okay,
I'm
Tim,
that.
You got to close this for us.
I'm that DPS in a 10-minute queue time, and you're looking for that tank, and everyone's looking at me as a Death Knight, saying, you know, you can tank this, and I'm like,
I could.
I could tank it. You're right, and I have before. I know what to do. I just really kind of looking to be a brain dead DPS tonight. I wasn't really wanting to think about it.
You and the rest of the WoW community,
Maybe
including myself.
maybe if people were nicer to their tanks, people.
So here's the key to that, Tim. You choose a class that only has DPS specs.
I know. Well, I don't
Rogue,
mind
mage,
the
lock.
options, once in a while, but when you get up to those mythics, people have no sympathy for you as a tank. Like, it's instant. You take half a second too long, and like everyone's already like backing out or saying this is a wash, and it's just, look, man, I have such bad anxiety when I try to tank in WoW now because of people. I'm a 30-year-old man afraid to get bullied online. Like, that's what WoW has done to me.
Just lowered our self-esteem even more.
It really has. It really has.
Thank God we found our wives young. 'Cause I definitely
Right.
would be finding one now.
Because this would be killing my confidence right now. Killing it. All right, let's get into Yikes of the week. We have a few to get to. I'll let you start it off.
Yeah, mine's coming from the TO side. Esports org, or I guess I want to say org, Grid Esports. Do you know a lot about Grid Esports, Tim?
I've heard of Grid Esports, I think just from like posts, but no. If you gun to my head, I will tell you no.
Let me tell you a little something about them. So recently they were hosting a 100K Counter-Strike tournament, which in Counter-Strike is a pretty big size tournament. I think if you're at 100K plus in CS, like that's a pretty good size, considering majors are only 1 million and other
You're getting
big tournaments.
attention.
You are getting attention, right? And you probably have some backing to be able to put up a 100K tournament, I would assume, right? Like you're going to have some funds to be able to throw that kind of cash out for one weekend. Teams like Cloud9, Ninjas, Gambit, all invited to this particular tournament or are going to be attending this tournament. Well, recently it came out from one of the talent from the event, posted their pay for what they would be making and complaining about it, I should say. Not really posting the exact numbers at the time, but complained about the pay, saying it was equivalent to a tier 2, possibly even a tier 3 event. He got DM'd by the talent coordinator at Grid Esports, Kieran Cullion. We'll go ahead and give him credit for this one. He messaged the group, essentially threatening to fire them if they talked about their wages. And that is illegal in EU and in NA. Like, you cannot fire somebody for them discussing their wages. But nonetheless, he threatened them, saying this is part of the confidentiality agreement that they all signed onto. We'll go back to, I think it's pronounced Pronigo, who is the talent that originally made the comment, posted the screenshot of the talent manager saying this, and then posted the exact pay rates. This is where it gets crazy, Tim. Let me just tell you how much these guys and girls are going to be making for this event. If you are part of a best of one, whether you're an analyst, caster, whatever your scenario may be, you are making $14.91.
An hour or
no, for that particular game. So like if you work a day,
okay,
and you're doing a BO1, maybe that's all you have on your plate, or maybe you have 2 BO1s on your plate, you are getting $14.91.
I thought working at the ticket didn't pay.
Or if you're EU, that's 12.5 euros. If it's a best of 3, $41, 35 euros. And if you happen to do a playoff game, start bumping it up a little bit, $119 or 100 euros. This got a lot of traction on social media. I mean, they took a lot of heat for these numbers coming out. First of all, if you're doing a BO1, there's still so much prep time and all this work that goes into preparing for that BO1, including the time you have to be there before and after, whether that's, pre-production, post-production type stuff. It's not like you just log on and boom, you do that one BO1 and you're done. But all these other big talent individuals in the scene came out and started talking about the money they were making. Machine said when he started working at ESL UK, he was making a rate of £200 per day over there. Tom Pickering, who has worked with Henry G, Sadakist, posted their money And a lot of these numbers are significantly off. And that's when they were starting out, right? Like they were making a lot more back then.
So
So
did these guys not know the rates when they signed up, or?
well, kind of like you and I discuss all the time, right? We've said this 100 times. If you get an opportunity to get into an event, you might be willing to take less than your market rate is because
Right.
you want to secure a spot, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're
So
building your resume, unfortunately, it is.
there's a difference though, right? Like there's a difference between taking below your rate. Let's say your rate's $200 a day for work, and then saying, okay, I'll take 140, 150 to do this larger scale event, get myself some exposure. But it doesn't mean you go from your $200 rate day down to like $30 a day. Now you're starting to like that's a wage issue. You're having people
Right.
essentially work below minimum wage, especially with depending on the game. And like CS:GO, a game can be an hour. A BO best of three can take up to 3.5, 4 hours. With time in the middle between the analyst desk and stuff like that. So you're talking about a lot of time invested for very little money. I get it. Not every org is TO is going to pay top dollar for talent, but there's got to be a happy medium there, right? If we're telling you to take less and then the org takes advantage of that and is like, hey, we're going to offer basically nothing. That's a bad look.
It's also
Like,
on that
that's not
flip
how it
side
should
too.
be
Like,
done.
if you're the TO and they are tweeting out your wages and you're pissed about it, like, bro, you're the one who's signing the checks. Like, what are you upset about? Like, you knew you were paying them that. It's like, did you not think that
Well,
was?
and then to come and threaten them.
That's
and
what I'm
say,
saying.
Hey,
Like, just
we're
own,
gonna
like,
fire you if you talk about this. Like,
if we're paying someone cheap and they're like tweeting out about it, be like, yeah, that's what our rates were. You signed up for it. I'm sorry they're lower than what you want or lower than others, but it's what we offered and you accepted. Like, now next
that
time
is
they'll
part
probably
of it, right? Like they did sign on to do it at that rate,
Right.
So that is maybe this would have been a little bit more beneficial had he tweeted it out when he was offered the contract, for example. Now, granted, that would have taken him out of contention of that contract
it's
being
illegal
valid
talking about it
beyond that
once you're
point.
hired.
Yeah,
They
I
could
mean,
also
now
not
you're
hire you.
hired on and you agreed to it. It's not what you wanted, but that is the flip side of it. At the end of the day, though, still like disgustingly low rates. Like that
Right.
is,
No,
you could probably pay a little bit more than that if you're paying 100K. Hosting a 100K tournament, you would think you could pay at least fair
I was
wages.
gonna say, no offense to like places like Esports Stadium here in Arlington, but I'd have to imagine they offer. I would have to imagine they offer. I mean, $14 a match. I could pay people more than that.
I really could, right?
I mean,
If
and I'm
that's
not
what it
offering-
takes to get an employee nowadays,
Yeah.
like $14 a day, like okay, I'm game. We can
if
hire
that's
a few
it,
people.
Anuj, we're doing all of our video editing and everything by ourselves here. We could hire on some people for $14 a day. That's
Only need some child labor. Who knew?
yeah, not bad at all. My yikes of the week comes from the corner of Evil Geniuses. So there was rumors going around that their CS team might be leaving CS, right? Or I guess Evil Geniuses might be backing out of CS, which, let's be real. If you're an NACS org, there's a rumor somewhere on the internet of you leaving CS. Like, that's just to assume, like, I think Liquid is going to leave CS. Do I have any bearing on that other than every other NA team is doing it? That's it. That's all I got. If you want to start this as a rumor, I wouldn't be shocked. But Richard Lewis and Thorne were talking about it on their show Beyond the Numbers, saying that, oh yeah, we heard Evil Geniuses might be thinking about leaving, getting out, focusing more on Valorant, things like that. Not a half a day later, their CEO comes on Twitter and shuts it down, saying, this is probably the 5th time, and I don't know how many more times I have to say it. We are not leaving CS.
The problem with Counter-Strike and esports in general, we see things said, and then all of a sudden the complete opposite happens 24 hours later.
So this is why I love
we're
it.
Jaded by that nonsense that's happened in the past.
Right.
But Evil Geniuses, to me, doesn't seem like a team that is shutting down their CSGO operation. I get it if you're not like a top 1 or 2 team in NA.
Didn't they
and
just
those
get
are the thoughts
OBO?
that you're having? Huh? Yeah, they just got OBO. Like they just
Right.
signed a new, like that's a big signing, right? At least for NA, that's a big signing.
So I love it for, like, this is a 2-factor yikes for me because I love it when a CEO gets on Twitter to shut down rumors. I love it because it's just like, and this is to
What
anyone.
can you say at that point?
This isn't
right?
just Richard Lewis and Thorne, right? Even though I love it when proven wrong, which isn't often. I'll give them that. But anyone, right? Just Decay, any of these rumor mill people out there, right? I love it when they get shut down. But then I also love it even more when the cocky CEO steps up and says, yeah, this ain't true. And then 48 hours later, Evil Geniuses decides to back out of CS. Because then it's also just like, welp, like, are you just a not informed CEO, or did you like
just not know that was coming?
like, did you truly just think maybe I should just let it go for a couple days? Like, what's up here? So either way, I'm giddy over the fact that maybe they did shut them down just moments after them talking about it, or in like a week we're gonna have an awesome switcheroo where it's like, oh, okay, you guys are leaving. Though
If
I don't think they are.
Evil Geniuses left NA or CS, that would be absolutely devastating. Like for NACS,
Which isn't
that
it
would
funny?
leave you with just Liquid. That it would just be Liquid. Who else is there?
Furia sometimes when they're here.
We got to stop counting Brazil as like I'm talking.
That's all
about
we got. We have to count Brazil at this point.
Okay, North American Counter-Strike, United States, maybe we'll give you Mexico too, and Canada. Within those regions, it's literally Liquid and the EG. Like that's it.
Isn't it funny how times have changed? When EG for a while there didn't have a CS team, and then when they came back, it was always like a warm fuzzy feeling of like, oh, EG is back in Counter-Strike. Things are normal. And now it's like, please God, don't leave, because this entire scene kind of relies on you staying around.
At least having two like premier teams is crucial for NACS staying alive. You can't just have one. You can't just have one
No.
because there's no teams. That's what would be bad, right? If there's one, but there's like Cloud9 is involved and 4 other teams, whatever, that are NA are involved that are big, and they're just not playing well, that's a different scenario, right? But there just wouldn't be other teams then besides Liquid. Like it would start going to like Pain Gaming and Triumph and Contact or whoever else is even there,
I mean, I'm even looking here, like in the top, Extra Salt. That's the next hope for NA is Extra Salt. Just looking at rankings alone. Yeah, it doesn't look good. So hopefully, the CEO knows what she's talking about, and they really aren't leaving CS, because if Evil Geniuses leave CS, then may God help NA, because that's all we got. All right, let's look at VCT, or is it? Yeah, VCT, the Valorant Champions Tour. NA, mainly here we have the upper quarterfinals, semifinals, lower round. So tomorrow we will be getting into, or actually no, we're on pause now until the 19th.
Yeah, 19th.
I don't like that.
No, it's a long time. That's Friday.
I don't like that.
That's Friday. That is the only good thing is because they play these games during the day, you don't get distracted during the week. Like they're not after hours type.
But the hype is going. Like the train has left the station, and now you're just telling me it's going to be a week until I get there? Like that's okay. All right, it is what it is. I don't make the schedule, and I just have to abide by it. That being said, oh my God, Anuj, I am glad we don't bet on these games, because if we did, we would be having to both put mortgages on our home.
Well, we would have both been 4-0 day one, right? I mean, we
day one.
Envy beating Gen G, we had FaZe Clan beating Eggset, Sentinels
was the only iffy, but if you would have,
and we still probably would have went.
Well,
that
we
way,
didn't know at the time. Last episode, we didn't know they were getting TenZ as a replacement. Like, okay, your sub is TenZ. That's a pretty good sub. All right.
Yeah, and then 100 Thieves over Immortals, right? So like what we expected to happen in the upper quarters happened, and for the most part, not very like close games. So we would have been okay there. We would have got smashed today. Like today would have been a really rough day.
For FaZe Clan to 2-0 Envy and Sentinels to 2-0 100 Thieves, which, oh yeah, by the way, were like the two favorites going into the event. Mm-hmm. Envy was the favorite. Well, I mean, I guess it just depends on who you ask, but Envy and 100 Thieves were the favorites going into this event, are now both, I mean, if they win their lower rounds, are going to be playing each other in lower round 3. Like it's inevitable one of them will be eliminated.
Yeah, no, they're going to be playing to get into the finals, and that's the only chance they have is working their way through losers bracket, and still going to be facing a FaZe or Sentinels again, right?
Yeah.
Like either way, they're going to be heads up with the one of them. Um, I want to talk about TenZ first because this was actually insane and almost bothers me even more.
Not bad for a content creator, though.
TenZ, for those of you that don't recall or don't know, TenZ recently quit. Easiest way to put it. He walked away from Valorant competitive, wanted to be a full-time streamer / content creator, kind of left Cloud9 hanging, a roster that was built around him. Just walked away from it. And then there had been rumors that I forgot who the previous team was, but somebody else had tried to get him on loan from C9. That was rejected. And then here comes the Sentinel situation with Sinatra this past week. Leaves them in a tough situation, headed into the biggest event for, Valorant pretty much until this point, maybe excluding First Strike. Either way, one of the biggest events, left them at with the 4-man roster. 10 subs in, carries them in the Luminosity match, right? He top frags over a 3-map series there. Today, he comes out against arguably one of the best teams. Granted, a team that's still probably understanding how to play with Ethan, newly acquired Ethan from Evil Geniuses and Counter-Strike. He actually played well today, but overall, probably still working him in a little bit. 10 steps in, Tim, and looks like he hasn't skipped a beat. And you're sitting there just banging your keyboard, dude.
They beat
wondering
100
why this guy walked away.
13-2 on Ascent. On map number 1, they beat them 13-2. I don't care if Ethan is getting warmed up with that team. First off, from a score standpoint, Ethan topped that match, right? Not from a KD standpoint, but from just how they do their score. Overall, Ethan was the top for his combat score. But regardless, I don't care about that. I don't give a shit. You lost 13-2 to a team with a sub. So what is your excuse of Ethan is still somewhat new? They found out 48 hours ago.
Saying this a sub is you and me.
But just from a play style, though.
Granted, the play style here kind of will go hand in hand a little bit in the sense that Sinatra was a star player, and I don't want to say the game focused or evolved around him, but a lot was set up for him to do well because he was able to execute. TenZ in that same mold, right? Like when he left, we were saying he was the best player in the game, right?
Yeah.
If not number 1, top 1, 2, 3, like somewhere right there. So they did get a gift from God.
Well, I feel too, they're playing with house money at this point, and they know
for
it.
Sure.
Like it definitely seems like they're just letting him do his thing, and then they'll play around that almost. Like
I agree.
Hey, we're not going to worry about these, executions and get all these things down. We're just going to play house money, go a little YOLO here and there, and just let TenZ do his thing. And he'll drop 40 bombs for the matches. He'll drop, almost a 30 bomb on a map. Like
and they almost were
unreal.
Like, let's go more aggressive, after they got him in the lineup. They were pinching bomb sites so fast and putting so much pressure on 100 Thieves, especially on Haven, where they ended up winning in overtime. So that was at least a close second game. 100 Thieves should have closed that game out. They let a couple of rounds slip. The stupid shotguns in this game are just brutal to watch because they're so effective and can be really effective from range if you're using the Bucky. I don't like it that much, but they were able to pull back on some eco rounds and win those rounds because Haven's also a pretty pinchy type map, right? Like all these bomb sites just kind of funnel in. So if you're holding that right angle and you're sitting there with the Bucky, or you're sitting there with drawing a blank on the other shotgun's name right now, but either one of them, just lethal at close
the
range.
Bucky, the shorty, and then the automatic. I don't know what the automatic one's called, but
so I think for 100 Thieves, you just scratch this, right? You go into losers. You're not in a terrible spot. You're going to be facing up against Gen G, a very winnable match for you. I think the way that they should be looking at this is look, we're going to have Envy next round. That's if we make it through that 100 Thieves Envy, instead of becoming a championship matchup like we both thought it would be, now becomes an elimination matchup for a chance to play in the lower finals. I hope that is the matchup because that'll be awesome to watch. Like that'll really be great to watch. But it's gonna suck to see one of them go home without at least making a finals appearance here.
Yeah, and I don't know what to think about Envy either, though, because I thought, and everyone thinks this, I think, too. I think this is the majority thought here, is FaZe Clan is either cheating or just really hitting stride at the right time. Because
it's crazy, isn't it?
It's like Baby Bay is all of a sudden looking like an all-star. Corey is looking like the all-star that, albeit was he
He
World
was
Cup
supposed
MVP?
to be the focal point of this team when they made this team. He was the first signing for them.
Yeah, so it's like to see both of these guys all of a sudden, and Marv, I mean, really, those three, Corey, Baby Bay, and Marv, today at least, looked unbeatable. And so for the sense of all of them just finding their stride and coming out of their shell a little bit, it's like the timing couldn't be better. Yeah. I'm not accusing anything. That's me memeing around. It's just me joking around. I don't think anyone's cheating. But it's incredible. Like, look at this matchup here today. Overall, over the two maps, because they beat Envy 13-6 on Icebox and 13-8 on Bind. So really, for me, in order for it to be a close match, I would have to say 13-9 at least, right? Just looking on paperwork, 13-8 is still pretty, not a blowout, but you weren't in it. But look at here, over those two maps, Corey, a plus 21, 41-20. Baby Bay, plus 20. Marv, plus 16 KD. No one on Envy even went positive over the two maps.
Yeah, no, I mean, Envy was just off. It didn't look good. And I think part of it's, look, FaZe is just on fire right now, dude. It's carrying over from the qualifiers, into VCT. It's just they're playing very aggressive. They're not showing their hand too early in rounds. I think like they were doing early on. They were really readable, like at the start of Valorant. I don't know if that was an Overwatch thing. I mean, I just don't know. Whatever it was, they didn't have like a competitive strategy edge going into their matchup.
I don't think they had the confidence that they had now. I do think that's a little bit of the Overwatch thing. Like, I don't think they'll admit it, but I do think they knew in the back of their head, like, okay, we're the Overwatch team, and there's a lot of pressure on us because of that. Just in the sense of, like, the community watching them, right, and judging them.
They're being judged really hard. Overwatch just kind of gets that heat in general, right? So that was expected.
Well, yeah, because they're coming over here thinking, oh, yeah, we play Overwatch. That's an FPS. While people who play FPSs are like, but is it? Like,
is it?
It's
like
an
kind
FPS?
Of a glorified arena shooter.
Yeah.
Like it feels like more like an arena shooter than it did. I get it. It's FPS, but there are several characters in that game which would make you think you're playing a totally different game. So it's not only that. But for these guys, yeah, a lot of pressure coming over from Overwatch. Starting off really rough, right? Like we anticipated roster changes fairly early on. They brought Marv over. It really wasn't working. And then it just clicked over the last few weeks. They look incredible. Would be so curious to see them up against like a Sentinels, and see if they can, because I know they've struggled mightily against them. Granted, again, a different Sentinels, but we believe they're probably just as strong,
if not stronger.
If not stronger. But like this FaZe Sentinels matchup coming up, I'm hyped. Like this is one where you have a team that is playing so well going up against a potential juggernaut in Sentinels who's consistently been at the top of every event that we've had. So we got a good second week ahead of us. Not what we expected, but hey, the teams that are playing the best, that's ultimately who you want to see. And 100 Thieves and Envy just didn't bring it today.
No. So again, that's going to be on the 19th, starting off with 100 Thieves, Gen G, Envy, Luminosity, and then leading into at night, FaZe Clan versus Sentinels. So really, on Friday, the 19th, I mean, just sit on your couch and just, it's going to be a beautiful day of Valorant. For sure. All right, so there's that. Let's throw it over to our guest appearance on our buddy Jay's show. He works for Mogul, so you can check them out on Twitter. But Jay invited us on a couple weeks ago, just talk some general esports, a little AMA about the podcast and everything there. So enjoy.
Welcome, guys. You got Jay Hairston here. I am the social director at mogul.gg, and I have two of the nicest, most genuine people I know in esports, and they also host a really cool esports podcast. And so I thought it would be awesome to have them just shoot the breeze, catch up, talk about esports, but mostly I really want to hear kind of their story when it comes to this podcast. I think you guys are on episode 308, maybe?
Yeah.
310, right around there.
Yeah, just did 308.
That is awesome. 308 episodes. We got Mr. Tim and Anuj from the Center Ring podcast. What's up with you guys?
Jay, long time no talk.
It's been a while.
Like our constant way of catching up was seeing you at events, and then the events went away.
I know, it's so sad, and I thought we'd be past this by now, and it looks like another year. I saw E3 got canceled, and deep breath,
E3 already canceled?
Yeah, it's not happening. It'll totally be online.
The funny thing about E3, so I was turning 35 this past year, and I told Tim, dream of mine has been to go to E3. Like, I want to go to E3 so bad, and it's just one of those events as a gamer. You got to be there at some point, right? Just like BlizzCon, and there's these other iconic events that I think of. Tim and I both got the pass from the wives to make a trip down there together. And of course, this is the year that it was canceled this past year. So we're taking a rain check on it, but now I don't know. Tim's 2 kids deep. I'm 1 kid deep. It's getting more and more unlikely that we're going to be going to some of these events for 4 or 5 days at a time.
I mean, on the bright side, by the time the events start, our kids will be older, so it won't even be that difficult.
But you guys have had, I got to turn off my soothing music. You guys have had the opportunity you've had the opportunity, Anuj, I assume, prior to this year to go. Yeah?
Yeah, it just hasn't been a priority when it comes to like the podcast. Most of what we do has to be focused like esports centric. E3 is not really built around that. So when we use our travel time to go to these events, it's usually to like Overwatch League finals or a Counter-Strike major. Like we want to
getting kicked out of the Overwatch League finals VIP lounge because of Jay.
I do blame that on you. Like we were very comfortable hiding in our little corner, and then the best looking guy in the booth has to walk in, and all of a sudden attention just started focusing a little bit more in our direction.
They were like, who's that guy? Who's he talking to? I was getting looked at the same way, I told you. But
you had the badge though. You had the Hastro badge on, I think, at the time.
I did have the badge. But I will say, if you're going to E3, they started opening it up to the general public like the last couple of years, and those kids got hated on so hard. You had like the industry folks, and usually it was like blazer and like a gamer tee underneath, and then you had the first years. I was a first year at one point. You bring the big old backpack and extra socks because you want to grab every keychain and every little goodie you can get. And then they have these bright like neon yellow badges that symbolize that they're general public, and people were sticking their nose up. It was so mean. Like even myself, I found myself doing it because the lines were just ridiculous to play these games. I'm like, stinking yellow badges. But then I remembered my first time, and I was like, dang, I remember it was like walking into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. And so I ended up like just chopping it up with some stinking yellow badges. And
so important to note then, when we go, Tim, we need to apply for a press badge.
Absolutely.
We can't go in there as a visitor badge.
No stinking yellow badges.
I never turn down anything free. So even if I'm in the press, I will be that guy with like a backpack just shoving every lanyard and free keychain. I have so much free stuff from events and my life in the media. It's all junk. You don't need any of it, but it's free, so.
That's a good segue. Talk a little bit about just your history, what it is you do, and what you're playing currently.
So for me personally, my history throughout college and the last 10 years of my life has been in radio. I worked at a station here in Dallas called The Ticket for a little over 7 years. So that's sports radio is my background, and did that for 7 years. I've ran the board. I've worked overnight shifts. I've done grunt work for most of that time, hosted, my own show, been producer, you name it. I've pretty much done it all when it comes to in radio.
Do you have a radio voice? It's like the soothing sounds of the 80s.
This is it.
That's it.
Thankfully, so the ticket's like very
It's sports radio, yeah.
it's sports radio, but it's not like traditional in the sense of like they want you to have a voice. You know, like you don't need to have like this radio voice and everything. Like they kind of want you to be genuine.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully, that's good for me because I do not have a radio voice.
Your voice
whatsoever.
projects nicely, Tim. You know, I'll give you that.
You're
I think your
smooth.
voice
You're
kind of
smooth with it.
projects.
I think that's just because my
Hype 'em
natural,
up.
like I've been on a radio, right? So it's I know how to talk in a microphone, which like half the people who do podcasts don't. So it's obvious, but no. So I did that for a long time, and then started the podcast up in the meantime because I was like, well, you know, sports is fun and all, but I like esports. So I started the podcast up with a buddy of mine back many, many years ago. And then once I had child number one, I was like, okay, I work a full-time job outside of radio. I do radio. And then with a kid and the podcast, I was like, one has to go. And unfortunately, radio, as some of you might know, is somewhat dying and does not pay the bills. So that was the one that had to go.
Unfortunate. And when did you meet this fine young gentleman?
Kind of a two-part story. It's kind of crazy, really. So me and Anuj originally met probably, or you can look it up because it was when Circuit City closed. We worked at Circuit City together.
I was in college. Tim was graduating high school, I think, at the time.
Yeah, like, so it was like my senior year of high school. He was graduating college. We both
Right.
worked at Circuit City.
Who was the boss?
We were different departments.
Different.
We were both pawns in the game, though. Let's be very
The
real there.
Circuit City.
Yeah.
The Circuit
And then,
City game.
so that went on, you know, shut down. We went our separate ways because we weren't even like super close then. We just, you know, worked at the same place. And then, I don't know, probably like 5 years later or so after that, 4 or 5 years later, my brother, I was living with some roommates. My brother was like, hey, we're going to have some friends come over. Is that cool? And we were like, yeah, sure. And then all of a sudden, this beautiful brown bastard walked through the door and we were like, don't we know each other? And we were like, yeah, we worked at Circuit City. And then that literally just kind of kicked it up from there.
I envy that so much. My favorite YouTubers are the Best Friends Play. They're Canadian best friends, or were, until business got in the way. They started blowing up on YouTube, and it broke up their friendship, which is really sad. But I've always just wanted somebody who shares my passion and will show up consistently every single week and, you know, put forth effort together on a project. So I think that's really cool that you guys do that.
We were sitting at dinner one day. We decided to let's get our wives together and get everyone together. We're out at dinner and Tim goes, hey, I got this podcast that I'm doing tonight. Do you want to come and just be a guest on it? And this must have been around episode, I don't know, 50, 60.
I think it was like I want to say like your first episode was like 48 or something like that.
Somewhere around there, like 50s. Yeah. So Tim's like, you want to just come and be a guest on it? So I came in and we're driving in the car and I'm writing down notes and looking up everything because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm about to be on like
you took it
Esports
serious.
podcast.
I like that.
I better be ready for this. So I'm like jotting down on my pen and pad. I felt like Eminem, just like freestyling on the pad of like things I want to talk about. And we get in there and sure enough, I didn't even open up the notepad. You don't even use it. Conversation just flowed so naturally. I realized that day that I was the yang to, you know, Tim. Like Tim needed me, and it felt right in that moment. And so, yeah, he asked me to come and join on from there, and here we are, like 250 episodes together later, and it's been an awesome ride.
But you guys both seem yin or yang, whichever one's like supposed to be the good, like calm, tranquil part of the symbol. I feel like that's both of you guys.
You come hang out with us in private more than you tell me.
Who's the like loud hype one?
There is
Who gets
definitely
wild?
a good cop, bad cop situation here. And it's very evident to me. I am the soothing voice of this podcast. Okay, I have to reel Tim in. If I let Tim go solo and go free, Jay, we all might be sitting here on the unemployment line today. Okay? Like there are moments where I am panicking as Tim is talking, and I feel like I have to come in and cool him down a little bit. But I think I would play the good cop a lot more than
okay.
You know, Tim's been there. He's been on the good side, but he's just inside.
It varies. So like when I first started the podcast, it was with my buddy Brandon. And then he bailed out around like episode 40. And then Brett came in for a little bit, and Brett and Anuj overlapped there for a little bit. But throughout all of the co-hosts, I've been the only one with like professional radio media background.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know, like in my brain, there was definitely like a learning period where I had to adjust because they didn't know like radio or media stuff. And it's like, for me, it seems like everyone in radio just panics a lot. Like it's just the anger level is, it's just, there's no 0 to 60. We're always at like 50. So it's just the panic. As soon as something goes wrong or something upsets us, it's just, I don't know. Anuj talks me down a lot, I would say.
Peacekeeper.
Yeah. No, he's, and it all works out. It all works out in the end because, it's like you said, it's been 250 episodes. Finally found someone to stick around the show and do it for more than 50 episodes. So it's been good.
Well, let's run it back to episode 1 because it is an AMA, and I want to see janky Tim in his closet with like a gamer headset. Is that what we're talking with episode 1, or you had already kind of from jump had the equipment kind of established because of your background?
So it's actually funny. Like literally today, my Facebook memory popped up with like the original TCR setup. So I'll have to tweet it out and tag you in it so you can see the original setup.
Yeah, absolutely.
To my standard, it is very jankety. But I think like I had a mixer board. I had, even the microphone I'm using today, it's the same microphone, it's not like a major broadcasting one, but it's a nice enough microphone. So I always had some equipment lying around just being, in radio. And Anuj will tell you, like from the get-go, even from episode 1 or from when Anuj joined in or anything like that, like if you're going to come into this podcast as a host with like a gaming headset, like you can just find show yourself out. Because with me, it's like, look, we might sound dumb. Like our points might be bad, but we're going to sound good.
But it's going to sound crisp.
Yeah. Just to stress this a little bit, when we started doing this show together, we were recording out at the AAC, right under Envy's offices, basically over there. We were across the street where the ticket and all that in Victory Park. So that's where we started recording. We used to drive an hour just to make sure we were recording on good equipment. Like, so the audio sounded good.
Because not everyone had microphones or anything like that.
I was using this was my microphone right here when we first
dedication
started.
I love it.
So we were driving an hour to record these episodes. Eventually we decided like, hey, this is going to be more economical to just do this from the house. So I went out and purchased stuff to be able to do this at home. But audio has always been we're a podcast, and I've listened to podcasts with bad audio, and I'll tell you, it drives me crazy. Now there's some that I would listen to that I would say the audio is poor, but the content is good, right? So I'll still give that a listen. But I notice it every single time. I'm like, man, if we just put a little bit of effort into this, it's going to sound 100 times better, And so we've always kind of had that as a driving point. Like, hey, it has to sound good if we're going to do this. And, that's where we started. And then obviously the content has to come along with that. But Tim's always stressed that from the beginning.
I know one of my first lessons hosting the MB podcast is I would move away from the mic when I'm talking. So I would be back here.
Yeah.
And then that quality just dips. And so they'd be like, Jay, like almost basically kiss the mic, act like you're kissing the mic. And so
talk through the mic, right?
Especially if you have I don't know the official term for it, but the hand mic when you're doing like interviews on the scene.
Yeah.
Right.
That's another thing. I'm so animated with my hand movements and stuff that I was constantly moving the mic away from my mouth and then
it's funny how much an inch can make a difference.
Oh man,
it's barely scooting it over.
It didn't matter what I was saying, honestly, because you couldn't piece it together.
It's those little things too. Like I remember, like when Anuj first started, it's like I would type to him in chat, like move closer to the mic, stop moving, or like it's like there's a balance where it's like you're close to the mic and it picks everything up, but it also doesn't hear you breathing, right? So it's like this weird gray area where you want to be in. But there's been episodes where that we've had to completely redo because it's like afterwards I'll go back and I'll be like, quality sucked, we're gonna redo it. And so we kind of loosely do the same topics.
Do you make the same jokes?
No, not really. I think we normally tell people too, like, so this is the second time we're talking about it, and normally it's due to like some technical issue or some sort, but
episode 308 is really episode 315.
Right. Like the first episode we ever recorded, episode number 1, Brandon and I were sitting in my apartment, sitting on the couch because we were roommates at the time. And sure enough, we did an hour-long episode, thought we crushed it, and I looked down, and for whatever reason, it stopped recording 10 minutes in because my computer went to sleep. So we had to redo episode 1, which I was like, well, this kind of sets the tone.
Is the pilot.
and
and that plane crashed. Who was your first like real guest in the world of esports?
That's a good question.
Where you got kind of, I'm talking where you got kind of giddy. You're like, like we made it, bro. We got so and so coming on the podcast.
I have to look at our YouTube to see this.
Was it James?
Oh yes, yes. GB James, who is now the owner of Pittsburgh Knights.
Nice.
He was at the time the coach of Team Liquid, and he was the first guy that I would say is like people knew, right? It wasn't like, oh, this person works in esports, or oh, like he reached out to us to come on the show because at the time there was believe it or not, he had some drama involving Thorin. It's a shock. I know, but there was drama involving Thorin, and I, to be honest, to this day I don't know why he wanted to come on our podcast, but he was like, yeah, I found you guys and I like the show and I want to come on so I can say my piece about what's going on. So he came on the show, and I would say that's probably the first big, like, whoa, okay, like this guy actually wants to come on the show.
Would you guys say there's a lot of competition in the gaming podcast space?
No.
I would say no, honestly, just because there are 100 other gaming podcasts out there. When we say gaming, let's narrow this down to esports, because I think if we go gaming, then yes, there's a shit ton of competition that probably way bigger than we are, right? But when it comes to esports focus, nobody's consistent, Jay. Like, people don't, it takes effort to do, right? As lax as Tim and I can seem, to do 308 episodes is a commitment, regardless. I mean, I think that's what people are most impressed of when we tell them about our shows. Hey, we're 308 episodes in. It's always like that, oh, damn factor. Like, y'all are really doing this. If you go to 90% of the other podcasts out there, there's usually this gap. They hit episode 9, 10, 11, and then they don't do anything for months on end, right? And then they want to re-energize it and come back and bring it back. And here's episode 12, 13, and 14. Then they rebrand it 15 and come back a month and a half later. Nobody does it consistently. Now, I don't know if that means we're the best, we're in our space, but I don't think.
Well, let's set the record straight. You're number 2 in Jordan, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah,
let's just get that on record. Jordan. Number 2 in Jordan.
Pretty big deal. pretty big deal.
We're working on India. Like, I feel like as my home country, we shouldn't be outside of the top 5 like we are right now. So we're making a big push there. Our next show will actually be done in Hindi.
Oh wow!
And Tim's learning, so we're gonna make that happen. But
that's huge.
Yeah, I just feel like there's not a ton of other podcasts out there that are consistent. So I mean, people make great content, but people don't want to do it long term, and they don't, whether it's time or what. It's just a lot of people end up stopping.
I think part of the reason that, in my eyes, that there's not competition for us, like Anuj said, like for the sake of what we do, you see a lot of esports podcasts, and they're a Counter-Strike podcast, they're an Overwatch podcast, or business esports podcast, which there's only like 1 million of those out there that claim they're a business esports podcast, which I don't even know what that is. I feel like that's just people who don't know esports but want to cash in on it. And there's like, for me, I haven't really found like a true like, we talk Counter-Strike, we talk Overwatch, we talk COD, we talk League of Legends, like we do it all. And like a traditional sports show, right? Like, you don't really typically turn into a sports show and all they talk about is one sport. They'll favor one sport, right? Like, we'll favor Counter-Strike, we favor FPS games, but we talk about them all. We'll break it down, the drama, things like that. We treat it like a traditional sports show.
Yeah.
So I there's
very
just
reminiscent of Sports Center, I would say.
There's a reason people watch ESPN versus watching NHL Network or NFL Network or MLB Network. Those are big shows in the sense, or big productions that are going on. But generally, a sports fan, if you ask them what they're watching, I'm going to Sports Center, I'm going to ESPN for my content. It's because they can get a lot of it in, right? They can really, hey, I want to know a little bit about what's going on with my baseball team. I want to know what's going on in football. Like, you can go to one show and one stop, get it all. You can't really do that with esports podcasts unless you're coming to us right now. If you're a Counter-Strike only fan, sure, there's plenty of them out there. You only want to talk and listen to Overwatch, awesome. There's plenty of podcasts out there for you. But not many people are willing to take the dive in and because that also takes extra time and energy to keep up with so many different scenes. We have to at least be knowledgeable in those areas to have a 30-45 minute discussion on it. And so we put in that time to watch these events, whether it's through VODs or live as they're happening. We put in that extra effort to do that, and I think that's better for us. I also think that's one of the big reasons why we're 308 episodes in, is it does keep it fresh. Like, if we were an Overwatch only podcast, shoot me now. Like, how bad would that have been?
Would be brutal.
Brutal. And hell, even during the regular season, it's not like it's been like an amazing run for Overwatch recently. So like, that would have really pigeonholed us into having to make a pivot in our podcast and talk about a different esport altogether. So for us, it keeps it fresh, keeps it fun, but I think it's an exciting way to do it, because we do end up becoming that one-stop shop for you if you're looking for esports content.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we have a good mix here, because I always go on record and say I am not an esports almanac. Like, I can't tell you who won the majors back in, like, I don't know that stuff. Like, yeah. I can barely say Katowice, and I'm probably still saying it wrong, but you guys are on that stuff. And if I had to like name esports experts that know week in and week out, like, what's going on in the scene, which teams won, what's the storylines, what's the beats, I'm bringing them to you guys. But for myself, I'm kind of that weird in-between space. You have the, what I call casual gamers, and those can range from anybody who just plays Overwatch to blow off some steam to my mom who plays Solitaire or Candy Crush. Those are the casuals for me. And then there's like this in-between where it's like you play a lot of ranked, like you're not trying to get on an esports team, and you like esports and you follow it, but you don't know all the teams, you don't know all the leagues, that kind of thing. That kind of in between of the two, that's kind of where I fall. And so it's cool that you guys kind of leave it open a little bit, leave the door open, because I just feel like there's not enough welcoming of the casual gamers, the casual fan base in general, to the world of esports, and will ultimately be its downfall if that doesn't change. I feel like it's starting to, but there's still a lot of gatekeeping. It's still very elitist.
It's the gatekeeping in esports is at an all-time high, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like with the introduction of Valorant, right? We just saw it. It was almost like it was going away for a little bit. For a while there, you had Counter-Strike people hating on Overwatch people, right? Like with the leagues and everything like that. And even like high-ranking, what I would consider high-ranking talking heads in esports, like people that I would say, oh, like if you're in esports, people probably look up to your opinion and respect it. And then they would just trash everything about it. Right? Like they would trash Overwatch League, Call of Duty League, League of Legends, all this, but Counter-Strike, could do no wrong. And I feel like Valorant kind of kickstarted that all up again, because now you have Counter-Strike people hating on Valorant, vice versa.
Didn't one of you guys tweet that you can like more than one esports?
I tweeted out the other day, like, believe it or not, despite popular belief, you can enjoy more than one esport. You don't have to be a ride or die with a scene. That's kind of the beauty of it.
Why is I'm not like going that? Because you think about traditional sports, it's not the case. Like football fans don't hate on basketball fans. It may not be their cup of tea, but they're not going to actively hate on it the way
they're not going to root for basketball.
But what you can't do in traditional sports that you can do in esports is you can pin them up against one another, right? So FPSs all kind of fall into a certain genre. Then you obviously have your PC versus console crowd, but there's a lot of like us versus you scenarios in esports that you don't run into in traditional sports. Like, sure, a baseball elitist and a football fan, might not have a ton in common, but it doesn't mean they disrespect each other's sports, right? They just don't pay attention to it.
Right.
In esports, you have a lot of that, because you want to know, are Valorant players better than Counter-Strike players? Is League of Legends and Dota, like, they're very much pinned up against one another. And I think that's where a lot of this mentality comes from, is us versus you. There are probably thousands of more fans that are like us, where it's okay to like multiple, or you can have a favorite. No one's telling you not to have a favorite. Doesn't mean the other one sucks. I think that's more the norm. They're just not the vocal majority. The vocal ones are the ones that really do want to pin it against one another. And look, don't get me wrong, that's kind of exciting too, to a certain extent, because it does cause a lot of drama. It builds up scenes in their own way. It unites a fan base to kind of at least stand up for something other than hating on somebody. You're just kind of focusing on your game. So it's okay to a certain extent, but I don't see it ever going away because of that reasoning, as games are very comparable, unlike traditional sports. I mean, what is there to compare in traditional sports that you could do that in game, the way we do it in gaming? It's just very difficult.
Yep.
It's not even like exclusive to esports, right? Like the whole console versus PC debate. Like, not only do you have that in normal gaming world, but now you take that over to esports and you end up with a perfect storm, like the other day, between COD people versus Counter-Strike people, and then console people are so sensitive about it anyways already. Like, you just, even if you bring up the fact that it's like, well, but PC is better, it's just they'll blow you up over it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where the scene goes with mobile, and that's something we're kind of focusing on with mobile, is tournaments in your pocket, because I don't play a lot of mobile games, but they're so damn convenient, and I'm thinking on a global scale where people can't afford the big expensive computers, let alone a PS5. I can't get a PS5 in the United States today. So it's like, but everybody has a phone. So
the famous quote.
Is that
everybody has a phone? The Blizzard. The quote from Diablo Immortal.
I remember that. That was not what people wanted to hear. By the way, I think Blizzard did a great job. I don't know if you guys caught any of their BlizzCon, but I thought it was a pretty cool event for what it was.
Okay, so can we talk about this for 2 seconds?
Absolutely.
Because I disagree.
Yeah, play it on me. Okay, are we talking presentation or the content? Because I'm with you on the content.
The presentation was fine, sure.
But I'm thinking as a marketer, and how oh man, they did this and they had the different channels and stuff, and they set that up and everything was kind of clean and you can bounce around. Nice. That's what I was talking about. But yes, go on the content. Go off.
No, the content was so lacking to me. We've already seen all of this. We knew Overwatch 2 is in the works. We know Diablo 4 and Diablo Immortal are being worked on. We're already in an expansion for World of Warcraft, so now you're focusing on talking about the first major update to the game. It was just all stuff that felt like it could have been great YouTube videos that they made and just pushed out as hey, this is what's next at Blizzard, and instead we got a bunch of hey, all of this stuff is still being worked on 3-4 years later in some cases, depending on which title you're talking about, and we still don't have definitive release dates for you. So what we're going to show you is one additional class in Diablo 4. We're going to show you a little bit of the next raid. We're going to show you 2 new maps in Overwatch. That's not what people are waiting for. This is like going to E3 and them showing me last year's games. I'm not going to E3 to see that. I'm going to see what's next and when is it coming out. And so if you don't have timelines in place, I hate that they announce these games 3 to 4 years into Diablo 4 was announced 2 years ago now. We still don't have a release date. It's just, why give us that to let us know it's there? Because only thing that builds up is frustration, not excitement at that point.
And you can never live up to the hype. It just builds and builds to the point where you'll never meet expectations because you've had so much time. Yeah.
So for me, I wanted release dates. I wanted some more concrete information. Instead, what I felt like we got was a good little developer notes update, and they decided to make those all into 1 hour stretches, and so yes, the presentation, fine, give you that. That was great. It was cool the way they put it on.
Metallica,
I'm glad they were able to
swing and a miss. Metallica swing and a miss.
Any music esports is a swing and a miss.
So I watched the site, and then I noticed I couldn't see the chat. I immediately wanted to see the chat's reaction. I'm always looking for that. So I actually had to leave their site, go to Twitch, and see just the spam. And I was like, damn, they're actually disrespecting the legends Metallica. I'm not a huge Metallica fan, but I know Metallica, and I know they're big enough to be respected in musical history.
Though. I mean, especially people on Twitch, that is not the demo.
Yeah, that was definitely a swing and a miss.
Also with the Metallica thing, did they not vet that out to where hey, this can't be broadcasted, so we're gonna have to have it? What did they played some elevator music over it, basically?
On Twitch, they did. On Twitch,
on Twitch, you could not hear Metallica. You heard some random non
Copyrighted music.
non-copyrighted
something like that,
music.
but-
So
And they weren't doing any Blizzard music, were they? Like, I thought it would have been cool, and maybe they did. I don't play Diablo, but like, do covers of like all these badass like scores that they've had over the years.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft, StarCraft, like all this beautiful music, and
just in those 3 games alone, they have 1,000 choices, right?
But I
Between
don't- with
Diablo,
these
StarCraft, and
events-
WoW.
would have been sweet. Would have went off.
With events nowadays too, I feel like we've come full circle where like I think we're all in our 30s. Are you in your 30s, Jay?
Dude, I'll be 34 this year.
Okay, there you go. So we're all in our 30s. We've come full circle now to where like people our age who are successful, popular artists probably also play games. We don't have to go get these like Metallica, who, who's to say? I don't think they're giant Blizzard gaming fans, right? But surely, like I know, like one year the Overwatch League finals got DJ Khaled, and everyone was like, "This is awful," and he probably didn't know what Overwatch was until the moment he signed the contract, getting paid for it. And then the next year they got Zed, who actually loves Overwatch,
But
and you
it's
could
still-
just tell.
It's
It's a different energy, at least.
It definitely had a
A
different energy, but he was stand up. And
It
those
still
gamer
doesn't
kids were like,
work
we're
in
not
that
standing
setting.
up.
Yeah, it still does not work in that setting.
Mm.
But Zed was a much better option for what they were.
That was a much better choice.
Right.
And
Yeah,
he
much better
even had
choice.
the social media presence where he could play with because he was
Yeah.
going back and forth with the players and stuff, for sure. They could just do video games live, like the orchestra, every single year, and
Yeah.
I'd be
That'd
pleased
be
as much.
badass.
Just do that
Yeah.
every year. Every
For
year.
sure.
Or, even better is just don't do music and save everyone 20, 30 minutes and just get on with the action.
That's how it felt.
Truly.
And I think that for content in general, I feel like everyone is moving so far away from what the fans want. I was talking to my girlfriend who works for Funimation, and she's, they're doing all these, shows and, online content. And I'm like, people want to watch anime with their friends. Like, group watching anime would kill it. You don't need to do all these spin-off shows where you're making the same food from the anime. Like, that's cool, but that's like fluff content. Like, get to the meat. And I feel like it's the same for any other industry. It's like
Look,
show us the games. We want to see the games. We want to see the trailers. Like, that's what we want to see. We don't want
That's
to see
what we're there for.
I want to die just having to watch a 30-second ad before a stream on Twitch. I don't want to watch a 20-minute performance by some artist that I could just go on Spotify right now and listen to their entire collection.
I'm with you, buddy.
That's how I feel.
Let's I'm gonna jump into these questions before we run out of time. Question 1. I need like a sound effect. See, I need a soundboard. You guys are professional. I'm not there yet.
Production.
What's your elevator pitch to get someone into esports? So we're talking the casual fan base, and you in the elevator. Hey, I have a podcast. What are you talking about? Esports. Oh, I've heard that word. Like, oh yeah, I play games all the time. Like, how do you hook, line, and sinker them into the realm of esports, but more importantly, listening to your show?
To get them into esports is always a little fun, right? Because there's so many times when I'm explaining to my wife's friends like what we do for fun on the side, right, with the show. And so it's like, hey, do you enjoy gaming? A lot of times that answer is a yes. Well, hey, did you know about this side of gaming? Most of the time that answer is a no. And just opening up like the vault to them, right? Letting them see what is going on this side of the world. Like, we're not all your typical gamer, right? Like, a lot of people that are not big gamers, they think of gamers and they think of this nerd persona, right? And this basement dweller, and that's maybe what we are in heart, but that's not what we are in reality, right? And so it's like just letting them explore. Hey, look, there's like 20,000 people go to this event. Like, just look at it for a minute. Like, look at the hype behind it. You don't have to understand what's going on, but live off of the crowd reaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, look at the stream that's happening. There's 1.5 million people sitting at their computer watching this same thing right now, and we can all interact here on this chat panel on this side. So it's just getting them to understand that it's like any other sport. It's just like any sport, it has its own audience, right? Mm-hmm. So I think just introducing them to it in a way where it's not like belittling them, like, you don't know what esports is? Like, get the hell out of here, like, I don't want to take the time to explain it to you. I think a lot of the times you just open up people's mind to what's going on the other side, And it's interesting. Like, how can you not be fascinated with the fact that 15,000 people will pack the stands to watch a video game? Oh, and by the way, they're all competing for millions of dollars. Oh, and look, all the sponsors are all the same sponsors that you would see at any traditional sporting event. Like, you buy them into the fact that it's real and it's already here. It's not that it's coming or around the corner. Like, this is happening whether you know it's happening or not. And so I like to just let people see the information, and a lot of times that's overwhelming in the sense of like, wow, like I didn't know this is what esports was. Like, I've heard of it. My husband plays Call of Duty, like that type of stuff. But I think opening people's eyes to what's really happening behind the scenes and the amount of work that goes into esports and esports production, as you can attest to, a lot of times that's a big enough pitch.
I think you're absolutely right. A lot of times the numbers and the dollars, like just hearing the absurdity of it is enough to legitimize it in a lot of people's minds. I've had people where they're kind of like, oh yeah, I heard about that, you kids playing video games for money. And I'm like, well, more people watch the League of Legends finals than the World Series of baseball. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah,
it's crazy
too. Like, if you're talking to like a parent, right? Like, I had a buddy of mine who I worked up at the station. Well, one for the Fuel homestands, his kids wanted to go see it, so he went to go with them. Never heard of esports. Like, he's heard of it, but never really watched it. And then when he went there, he was like, I had no idea what was going on, but I was just captivated by the audience and their reaction. And it's like, look, when it comes down to whether you're a traditional sports person or an esports person, at the end of the day, it's competition. That's what we love, right? We like winners. We like losers. We want to have that competition. So if you're a parent and maybe your kid doesn't like baseball or football or true traditional physical sports, but you see him playing video games a lot, why don't, as a parent, what a perfect segue into hey, I hear this event's going on this weekend, do you want to go check it out? And they'll you can both be kind of experiencing something new with each other, and then kind of bounce off of that. So I think it's super important to parents to realize too, like, this, it's not that your kid's not into sports. He's just not into your sport. Like, there is competition elsewhere, though.
Yeah, I like the family aspect of it, and that's definitely my go-to when people are like, "Well, why would you watch somebody else play video games?" I'm like, "Well, did you watch Tom Brady throw the football on Super Bowl Sunday? You can throw a football, right? You can go out in the yard and throw that football. You want to see it done at the highest level. We're the same, whether it's poker, whether it's hot dog eating contest with Kobayashi." Overwatch.
You want to see the best perform in their art, right?
100%.
That's what it comes down to. It because it is a work of art to watch these people perform. Like, I'm in awe anytime I watch a Counter-Strike match. I'm like, God, they're like just so much better than me. But because I play the game, I recognize that as a casual fan, people are just looking like they're playing video games. It doesn't look like anything special. So I think, like I said, just getting them involved and knowing what's going on. As far as getting the people to listen to our podcast, I do use the generic line of, we are the Sports Center type style show for esports, and if esports is intriguing to them, I tell them to come in and listen in. If they're not a fan of esports, I'm also very honest. Like, our show is probably not for you. If you are not a fan of, you don't have to be a historian, you don't have to be a diehard, but if you don't follow esports at all, our show is probably not for you. Like, you're not going to be part of the demographic.
You have interest in it, sure.
Yeah, if you have interest in it and you want to learn, hey, we'll give you some information, but we also don't talk about games at a very beginner entry level. We don't explain things as they're happening if we're breaking down a matchup or something that's coming up. It's more like the meat of the matchup, like the player versus player competition or the map pool or whatever the situation may be. So, I tell people, if you have any interest in esports, I think you'll enjoy our show. I really do. Like, I think it's an entertaining show for somebody who's just an esports fan. But if that's not you, you're probably not going to understand what's going on. You might just like Tim's voice, and that could be good enough to capture.
That's good too.
You.
Put it on in the background. Put your babies to sleep.
My favorite thing is when people tell me, you help me get through my day at work. Like, I listen to you at work. Those are my favorite, because I've been there and I'm doing that, and I have on my favorite podcast during that time. So I know it's like, again, if you're into it, I really think people would just enjoy it. It's just a casual esports show.
Mm-hmm. It's good stuff. Question number 2. What's the most important lesson you've learned from starting a podcast?
Consistency matters. Consistency and
great one.
quality matters for sure. Like, it's not, if something's good or just okay, like, you should probably rethink it then. Not to say like it's not for you, just okay, how can I tweak it, right? Like, what you're doing isn't always the best thing. So, and that's something that I've had to learn too, as coming from like media background. Like, in my head, I always thought like, well, I know what I'm doing here, right? And I think it's just kind of having that perspective of other people's opinions, and because you have to adapt, right? If you have a podcast and all you're doing is what you think is best, well, I mean, I guess if all of a sudden you're number one on iTunes, then sure, that's when you can stop listening to people. But until you're number one on the charts in iTunes, you should probably still listen to people.
Yeah, for me, it's like, don't let your ego get in the way. It's so easy because there's so many. Tim and I have experienced multiple successes and multiple failures, in our time together. And there's been so many moments where we just get dragged down to reality really quick, right? Like we think we're doing something right, or we're growing, and we still understand our place in esports. And so I would say, to anybody that's like, whether it's podcasting or content creation, like, you don't let your ego get in the way. If things are going good, celebrate the wins, continue to perform to get better. But the moment you think you made it, you're a made man, and this is it, like, I feel like that's when it tends to bite people in the butt. And so now we've learned, because like I said, we've had many failures that people just don't know about, like things that have just fallen through left and right for us, that we have working a year to make some of these deals happen, and it just blankets out on us. And so that's really kind of put us in check, and it makes us work harder. And I hope we don't ever lose that, right? Like, maybe there'll be a time where Tim and I are big enough to where it's like we can get online and there's 1,000 viewers waiting for us in chat. Like, that would be incredible.
Tim's gonna have to take his shirt off one of these episodes.
It might do it for us.
It's gonna take you to maybe a hot tub ASMR stream.
That is the thing.
Oh, I know. I've been on Twitch.
That is the thing. I put up a sidebar here. So I have Twitch on like my Fire TV and everything.
Yeah.
And I turn it on, and then under like their front page, right, how they have like that splash page, is some chick in a hot tub stream.
And then the wife comes in.
My wife was like, "What did you just turn on?" I was like, "It's Twitch. I don't even know what you want from me."
She's gaming,
video game streams.
Babe, it's content, okay? The content creator.
High quality content. Oh man. No, that's very helpful. I'm someone myself who's kind of struggles from perfection paralysis, I call it, where it's like I want to wait until everything's just perfectly perfect, and sometimes you just got to let it fly and then build on it from there. Take feedback, be your own worst critic. So just play it back and be honest with yourself. And so I've been trying to do more.
There's a balance too, though, of like also being authentic, right? Like, one thing we never do on the show, like, we record it live as if it were a real radio show. Right? I don't go back in and edit out the bad parts, or if someone stutters or says something dumb, I don't ever go back and edit it. Like, we said it, it's out there, let's own it, right? And so I think that's one thing too, is like, just to be yourself. Like, don't go in here and I didn't make that point very well, so let me just go back and re-edit it and everything there, like,
drive yourself crazy.
Be yourself, and be, that will I think the audience will see that too, right? If you go in here and just be a drone of perfection, then it's like, okay, it kind of takes a little bit of away.
That's what YouTube videos are for,
right?
Where they're constantly cut up, and the jump cut, and it's like, we go one run. If it's good, it's good. If we don't love it,
we'll make it better next time.
Yeah, that's also part of being a parent and married. We don't have time to re-record crap.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Who's your favorite guest that you've had on the Centering podcast, Esports podcast?
For me, I think I've said this too on an episode before, is I got your Pistola, Halo Pro.
Okay.
First off, I'm a Halo guy, so I'm a sucker for Halo. He's the first Halo guest that we've had on.
I am not. So what makes him so dandy?
He's just a good dude. Like, normally these guests come on and they're like it's weird because like as gamers, we're all so loud and vocal in the game and like on social media, like we talk so much trash, and then you get them on the show and they're like
eyes down,
so
yeah,
timid
good.
and like yeah, it's like, you know, I try to be loose and make a joke and then they just like completely reject it to half court and they're just like, you know, I'm like, dude, loosen up a little bit. And he just came in like very calm, very loose. We talked about music, we talked about TV, you know, it was more just a conversation. And yeah, I felt like he was just very comfortable doing the interview as opposed to some, which aren't bad interviews, but it's just at the same time, it's a little bit more stiff, you know?
Anush?
2 favorites for me. First one would be Rambo. He's a old Counter-Strike pro from 1.6 days. He is one of the biggest reasons why I had any interest in esports to begin with. He was the first Counter-Strike pro that I actually followed and went to watch highlight tapes from. And this is back in early 2000s, you know? And we had met him briefly at the Complexity offices, and I got to say hi to him over there, which was really cool. But then we were able to get him on the show a couple years later, and that was just a cool moment for me. I think my favorite interview, though, as a whole, would be Simple from Counter-Strike, because I had to work my ass off to get that one, including getting rejected from him at the event, and for him to come back later and do that interview with us was really cool, because I'm a Counter-Strike guy at heart. Like that's where my bread and butter is. It's just how Tim and I kind of grew up in gaming for the most part. So interviewing Simple was like a highlight moment, because there's nothing better than interviewing the best, and that's what he's been for so many years now.
Good picks.
And of course, when we had you on.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, but I didn't want to choose that
I mean,
one because it was like
that goes
too
without
obvious.
saying. Besides,
Yeah.
That's number
That's what
one.
I thought the question how it was worded, right? Who was your favorite guest besides me?
asterisk besides Jay. Yep, that's what
what
it
I
was.
It's kind of funny. Anuj got yelled at by the Complexity CSGO team for fanboying Rambo when we met him.
I could totally see that.
I was
In the middle of
I
like
started
a
like
practice.
talking and they were practicing and they told me to basically like, hey, shut up. They're like in the middle of practice right now. I'm like, that's Rambo, dude. What do you mean shut up? You shut up.
Not to be
Yeah.
confused with Rambo, the coach of the champion Dallas
Yeah,
Empire of
different
Call
Rambo.
of Duty. Because when they said we were signing Rambo, I had heard so much about this legendary player, and I was like, "Oh snap, we're getting Rambo!" And they're like, "Not that Rambo."
Not that
I was
Rambo.
like,
Not that Rambo.
well, you kids need to come up with better usernames, because
Not my fault you copied somebody's name.
seriously,
That being said, though, if I could go back to the what's an important lesson too, because this also reminded me of
sure.
when you go to events, and I've told this to Anuj too, because you know when like we cover teams or whatever, and we go to an event, just act like you're supposed to be there, like dress somewhat nice, have a lanyard on, and you can almost get anywhere if you look confident at an event.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
Yep.
number like I learned that
Shoulders
day
back,
one. in
smile
video.
a lot.
Yep.
Yep.
I got into some places I knew I definitely shouldn't be at. Like, for example, the owner's box at BlizzCon until Jay walks up and says hi to you and draws attention and they ask you to
Wasn't my
leave.
fault. I thought you guys were legit.
Why would we be in the owner's box?
Because you guys are official. You guys are the #2 podcast in Jordan. You better recognize.
The only reason we're the #2 in Jordan is because all the Prince's assassins listen to the podcast. They're coming after us for making
I
fun of-
heard you getting caught up in the mix, and they might be coming after you.
It's just it was like right when Blast and some other person was signing a deal with, you know, the Prince of Saudi Arabia and all that over there, and obviously he's like not a nice person, and we were making light of it and making jokes on the show, and then like all of a sudden a week later we got an email saying congratulations, your podcast has reached #2 in Jordan.
I'm
And I was like,
great.
oh my god, like we're dead,
Oh,
sign the
my
will now
goodness.
because that's it. GG.
Well, it's good to have you on this one last time.
Yeah, this might be it. You never know.
This is kind of a question for newbies. What is the hardware requirements, would you say, for starting a podcast?
Not a lot.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, honestly, if you don't need to go all out, right? You can honestly even use a gaming headset if you're not an audio snob like Tim. A cheapo, you know, if it's a podcast, that's really all you need. You can download free recording software.
What do you recommend? Can you throw out any names?
Well, I mean, I use Adobe Audition. So if you can find it free on the internet, use that. But like Audacity, works just fine. I mean, if you have Apple, I'm sure they have some Apple software. I don't have Apple
built into the computer.
Yeah.
Even if you're willing, if you're trying to extract audio, you can record it on Twitch without, video up if you wanted to, or OBS. There's a record feature on there. So there's they've made podcasting so easy. That's why there's a million podcasters now. And the entry to it, the barrier to entry is nothing. It's really nothing. You just have to have a mic and something you want to talk about. And if you have an idea, you go from there, and then beyond that, like the next step up, I would tell people, yes, when you have an opportunity to upgrade your mic, that would be the first purchase I would make, because podcast, everything is audio. We do video now, but only after we've put money into cameras and, things that we feel like make our rooms look semi-nice and stuff like that. But none of that is needed. If you can invest $150 into a Audio Technica USB mic, you don't even need a soundboard or anything like that. Like, it can all be done straight through your computer. Then you elevate your game, right? As you see your podcast growing, you're having fun with it. It doesn't even have to be growing from a numbers standpoint. You're just enjoying what you're doing and you want to be more involved. Then you can get a little soundboard, and they just have made it so easy to podcast. So much easier than it was even, 5-6 years ago when we jumped into it. It's all available for you. Half the software is free. The hardware prices are super competitive and have dropped. So it doesn't take a lot, but you can start off with the $20 gaming mic, and guess what? You got yourself a podcast if you want to.
Yeah.
Make it better, but that's enough.
Like, if you're watching the stream right now, like me, I have a microphone, a stand, and then I have a mixer board on my end, right? Because I'm the one who records it on my end and everything. But this is mainly just so we can travel. And it's for this one in particular, it's the Rodecaster, I think is what they call it. So it's like a travel all-in-one board. Like, you don't even need a computer. It has an SD card and everything. So if we're on the road and it's just, we're in the hotel room, whatever, we can still do episodes, live at events and things like that. That's why we got that. But you don't have to go that fancy. Anuj, he has a USB mic. That's it. That's all he has there. He didn't even get an XLR mic. He just bought a USB.
Audio Technica A2020 cost me $120 on Amazon.
I think I got that same one.
Yeah, I mean it's great.
To get a $400 broadcasting Shure microphone. They sound better? Sure, to some, right? To 99% of the people listening, as long as you're not using an iPhone, headphone mic, you're probably okay. Even nowadays, gaming headsets, I made the joke, but I mean, most gaming headsets now, their mics are pretty damn good anyways, right? So audio game has become a lot easier for the at-home people. A lot of it too is just going to be in your post-production as well, right? We do all of our production, the music, the drops, all that underbed music, we do all that live. I push all those buttons live, so I don't have to go in and edit it later. But even then, the audio software that you have, Audacity, Audition, that should let you edit, put under music, anything like that. That all works. So it's pretty.
Talk to me real quick, if you would, about distribution of the audio once it's done. So you got it all cleaned up and it's ready to go out. How are you getting it on iTunes and on Spotify and all these wonderful places?
So for there's a few. I mean, obviously Google, because that might be what you're spending money on as far as building it into your budget. But even then, it's not crazy high. I think our hosting is $20 a month, and that lets us have 20 hours a month or something like that. And we do 2 episodes a week, so it, about
for
an hour.
Us, it works out. If you're doing a ton of content and you're pushing out, 20 hours of content audio a week, then you would
all
need
different, right?
Yeah, need to pay a little bit more for it. But for what we do, super cheap. We pay $20 a month. We upload the file and they distribute for us. Yeah. So then it's automatically on Spotify, iTunes, name it, it's there.
Most of the if you're wanting to get on iTunes and everything like that. Now, first off, if you really truly just wanted to start to get your feet wet to see if you could do it, just upload. I mean, go look at our YouTube. Some of our earliest YouTube content. I mean, really, for the first 150 episodes, it's just audio. We didn't do video. So if you really just want to get your content out there, there's no shame in streaming just audio on Twitch and uploading it to YouTube, right? You want to get your content out there just for the sake of seeing how it sounds. That's one way to do it.
Because these files are going to get pretty sizable, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I I don't keep video files. I delete all of them. I tried doing that because I wanted to be like, oh, I keep all the episodes, but I learned very quickly, like, damn, video takes up a lot of space. Like, I'm only 20 episodes in and my computer's full.
That's the beauty of like we're doing it through Twitch and YouTube though. As long as you don't lose your account or get banned, you keep all that content, right? So Twitch keeps your replays, YouTube keeps a running playlist for you. You can organize it on there. So really, like, there's no barrier to entry. Like, there's not. If you're not doing a podcast and you want to do one, there should be zero excuses. You know, it just takes a little bit of effort, not even a lot of know-how, but most of the stuff is free. You can do it through YouTube, Twitch. You don't have to pay for services like we are. That's stuff that we also did later in our, in our cycle.
Most actually just recently. So not an ad, but we use like Buzzsprout for our hosting of audio. And that website takes care of all the distributions between like the big hitters for podcasts and everything like that. So I don't have to worry about, like setting it up and all that. Like they kind of handle all of it and they make it very easy. And like most of these sites even too, like have like other things that you could pay a little bit more money for. And like they could make you like cool things for your social media if you care about. Like, well, if you have an infinite budget, you can make it look very professional, even though you're just starting out. So
well, I look forward to having you guys on the Jay Hairston top tier throwback nostalgia podcast coming to a stream near you. I'm gonna take like what's the tier making website? Is that what it's called? Tiermaker.com or whatever it is?
I think so.
I would just want to reminisce about the good old days, and we're talking candy, we're talking video games, we're talking TV shows from the 90s, 80s, whatever. Oh. So you just bring your top 10 to the table, and we sit down and we have an hour-long conversation where we're bringing them up and we're looking at pictures, and we have to come to a mutual agreement by the time the podcast is done of that top 10 list of best candies from the 90s or
Jay,
best...
we got you anytime, buddy. Anytime you need a second and third voice, Tim and I are here for you.
Good stuff. Right on. Well, before we get out of here, last question. Talk about the good stuff. What are the perks of having your own gaming esports podcast?
It's an excuse that you can use for the misses to go play games.
Doing some research, babe.
If they are listening right now, I'm going to kill you.
Only reason I even got into sports media at the start was like, oh, wow. You mean I could like watch sports all the time? Like, that sounds pretty good. And now it just morphed into gaming.
Twofold for me. Okay, so obviously, main one is getting to go to events. If you're an esports fan and you haven't been to a live event, they're game changing. Like just being there with thousands of other people that have the same interest in you, and it's just through the roof fun. So like Tim and I have been fortunate enough to go to several events out of state, as well as I feel like 100, it feels like here in Texas themselves, but just being able to go to some of these events that I probably never would have gone to otherwise. Either we were flown out there, invited, whatever it may have been, we got an opportunity to attend some really cool events. That also ties into meeting like the players, right? Like getting to see some of these players that you just see as a mythical creature on TV, getting to physically say hi to them and talk to them about their game. And, that's been an opportunity that's been really cool for me personally, because there's been so many players that I've watched over the years. And then I got into this and we've grown and things have gone well and we've been able to meet them. Like, it's like game changing for us. Like it re-energized me to a certain extent after 150 episodes to be like, oh, now we're getting to go to these events. Cool. Now we're getting to talk to these players. Like, that's awesome. And so it's kind of continuously got better. And then the last thing would be free merch.
It's all about
that's like merch. It's all about the free merch. The amount of hoodies and
those koozies. Can I get those
shirts
koozies?
And everything we got? Like, it's just like so much free merch, and that's just a cool little like side perk. Obviously, the events and meeting players and meeting people like you. This wouldn't have happened without the podcast. Like, I wasn't running into Jay at the time. Like, in your previous role, like we weren't gonna meet any other way.
Mm-hmm.
Like that had to be us doing what we were doing at that time and you doing what you were doing at that time for us to all connect. And so it's been awesome to make some of these relationships, and so many of them have just been lasting friendships, and they've gone beyond like It's not just esports, right? Like if I want to hop on WoW and invite you to come and join my dungeon group this
Let's
week,
go.
great. Like I would love for that to happen, And so building relationships, making friends, like this has all just like been a great thing for us, and we're appreciative of it. We have a lot of respect for what it's given us, right? Like we try to give back in the same sense by doing what we're doing, but it's also given us a lot of cool opportunities.
And on that note too, I think, and if you have a start your own podcast, Jay, or anyone out there wants to start their own podcast, and you'll quickly realize your listeners, right? Your listeners truly do kind of become like your kind of, sounds cliche, but close-knit friends or family, right? Like and especially nowadays, right? You have Discord, you kind of talk through them throughout the day, and you all have the same interest. And we play games with some of our listeners now, and kind of on a regular basis even, right? So having that kind of close-knit sense of community, and like Anuj said, like when they DM you and say like, dude, I just want to say, listen to the show, and you guys made this point about Black Lives Matter or this race issue, or because we talk, we're adults. That's the one difference with our show is we're 30, we're parents, we're gamer dads, we're old, right? Like, so our perspective, we don't shy away from conversation, and they'll say like, look, you guys talked about this topic and it doesn't get talked enough about in esports, and I really appreciate it. And it gets me through work, gets me through my drive. Like selfishly, those little compliments, it's like, Anuj and I,
man.
Yeah, we'll always put it in our little private show chat so that we make sure each other sees it. Like, this person, said something nice, and it's like that never gets old. It never gets old when you get a compliment like that.
It's so important, man. You're not your follower count. It's so important.
100%.
It's like I gained. This sounds like a brag, but I gained 200,000 followers on TikTok from one video. It was a random posted video. I almost didn't post it. It was a video of the Acer Predator like gaming setup that you get in the chair. Yeah. Awesome thing. Didn't think it was gonna go viral. Things up to like 17 million views. I got 200,000 followers in a week, and my brain can't even fathom that's 200,000 real people, hopefully, probably some bots in there, but clicking,
give or take,
interacting with that video. That's so mind blowing to me. And I always like to not make it become a collectathon when it comes to stuff like that. Follower counts, like, no, those are genuine people.
That's dangerous.
They have dreams, aspirations, just like you. They're living, breathing people. The computer interface and social media just kind of makes a disconnect sometimes, but you have to see through that.
That's also a fun compliment is like, with us, like we're, I would say on the scale of unsuccessful, successful, we are a successful esports podcast. We are, like we said, in number 2 in Jordan. You don't get number 2 in Jordan without being a success. But when people are like, wow, I found your podcast and I listened to it, and the guests you guys get are huge, and you guys have so much, you sound so professional. I can't believe it's just you guys. Like, they're like, what org do you work for? We don't work for an org. Like, there is no big backer. People, believe it or not, it is just Anuj and I. Yeah. So it's just, we don't have this org behind us. We don't have this year's worth of credentials of, whatever. It's like, we don't have 1 million followers on social media and to get us this stuff. It's just us. It's, it's us out there doing our thing.
And you do it because you love it, not because you want something. I think
we both got full-time jobs. We're both working full-time jobs outside of this, and this has become its own job, obviously. But we both have full-time jobs to provide for our families, and we've always said, like, great, if this makes us enough one day to stop doing what we're doing, we would love that, but we don't do it for the money. We don't do 308 episodes making what we make. Trust me, we're making less than minimum wage if you calculated it out that way. And so, I mean, we do it because we love what we're doing. We really, really do. And it's kind of cool. I was going to throw this out there. We had a listener make our Timmys for us this year. He actually 3D printed them,
the awards,
and made our awards for us, and we just got them in. And he did that purely out of the goodness of his heart. He messaged us and was like, "Hey, you got your award show. Do you actually have awards?"
Hey,
and there you go. I don't know if you can see the little mustache on the top for the Timmy part. It'll have to.
That's amazing.
But he 3D printed all of these for us to like send them out to the winners, and so we're sending them out, and it's just stuff like that. That's just awesome. You know, we had a kid that's in school that wants to do some editing and get some exposure, and he hit us up and he's like, "Hey, can I edit some stuff for you guys?" And it's just like, if we can help you out, like, you don't, none of this, use all this content for yourself. Like, if you need to edit it and show that you did it, say that you did it, you know. And it's just it's been cool. Like Tim said, the community side has been one of the best things of this whole thing. Like, we've made so many actual friends from it, not just, you know, they're not just that number that you talk about, you know.
That's awesome, guys. Well, I won't take up any more of your time, but it's been so awesome having you guys. If you guys want to close this out, tell the listeners and watchers where they can find you, when the next episode's coming out, all that good stuff. Get your plugs in.
Yeah, so of course on Twitter at the Center Ring, website tcr.gg. We put some blog posts up there. Writing takes a lot more effort than doing talking, so blog posts are kind of slowly up there, but you can go there. Has all the details, everything else you need for social media and all that. We go live every Sunday and Wednesday night, Twitch and YouTube, the Center Ring respectively on both platforms. New episodes are posted right afterwards, so typically you'll see them every Monday and Thursday, we say, is our new episode day. And you know, that's it for the show. I'm at Pirate Mushroom on Twitter.
Anoush, tell them about the OnlyFans.
The OnlyFans is at spiffy_VR. No, really, guys, like, I just want y'all to come and find the show. If you have any interest in what I have to say, you can follow me at spiffy_VR. But really, you know, for us, it's about the show. So at the Center Ring, check out what we have going on. If you have any interest in esports, we'd love to share our wisdom, knowledge, humor, whatever you want to call it. You know, we would love to share it with you guys. So come check it out.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. And everybody have a good evening. See you next time.
All right, and thanks again to Jay for having us on his little show there to talk some just general esports and kind of, well, AMA. Kind of gives you guys a behind the scenes on the way we do things here. So, look, I always love catching up with Jay. Doesn't happen enough. So, I really enjoy it.
Definitely fun. And it was cool because we're usually not on the end of being asked questions, right? So that's always just a fun experience. And look, hopefully it was useful for anybody that's wanting to get into podcasting. But no, Tim and I are always willing to answer questions. You can always catch us in our Discord, DM us on Twitter. If you ever have any questions about equipment, or hell, if you're having an audio issue, ask Tim. You know, he usually is able to figure out any of ours. But yeah, if you ever need any help in getting set up or getting started, or just you know, advice, never hesitate to reach out.
No, and if we don't answer, don't feel bad for asking like 1,000 times, because we both are really bad about, at least me, I'm bad about like opening up the notifications, seeing someone messages us, and then I'll put it away thinking I'll get back to it in 5 minutes. And
what
then
if they had a check mark on their name, Tim?
Well, if they had a check mark, then that's like insta reply. I'll drop my child to answer that question. Of course. But you know, I'm also a lonely pleb without a check mark in it, so I can't judge. All right, let's get into e-news here, brought to you by Philly Esports. Their up-and-coming event for this month is next weekend, the 20th, 2v2 gunfight tournament for Call of Duty Cold War. You can still sign up. Sign-ups are still available, phillyesports.net. Win some cold, hard cash. Just, it's 2v2. Easy. You don't even need friends, plural. You need friend. One friend. That's all you need in this life, is one friend to start a 2v2 gunfight tournament and win. And who knows? Maybe this kicks off your pro career. You know, it's not the first time it's happened with Philly Esports. Won't be the last time, because they handle their tournaments very professionally. And you can check it out yourself, phillyesports.net. All right. Looking here, a little light e-news, as it seems to always be the case when there's big events going on. In CSGO, Navera, is that how you say his name, right? Mm-hmm. Navera steps down from Vitality.
That's Scream's brother. For those of you that don't know, he played really well for Vitality. I think he's going to find himself a home pretty quickly here.
What's the deal? Was there something going on? Like,
I mean, he was just used exclusively on like 1 or 2 maps, right?
Right.
So he's gotten that experience. He's been doing that for a handful of months now. He's played in several matches. He's played well in those matches. I'm sure he wants to test himself, right? And like get into a starting roster slot somewhere. I think that possibility is 100% there for him. So I'm excited for the next steps. It was great that Vitality initially even offered him that spot to get that exposure, and he took advantage of it. Like, that's what you got to do with those opportunities, and he did that. So great for him.
Speaking of NACS being in a mess, Pain upsets Liquid and advances to the DreamHack Open March NA Finals. They will play the winner of Extra Salt, worst org name in esports, or High Coast.
What a finals for this is a true DreamHack finals. Like, in the sense of, you would think they didn't invite anybody big to the event. Little did you know, Liquid gets knocked out by Pain. You know, like, that's. NAF tweeted out a picture of a Valorant player right after the match. Like, I think it was Reyna or something. Yeah. And just joking around.
The rumor mill now is starting that he might be leaving.
Like, and Stewie, I think, had a little bit of a poor attitude towards the loss, and just like an F it. It is what it is type thing, you know? And
no, Stewie? That's having an attitude like that? No.
You know, it's just it's one of those things. You can't lose these matches. Like, I get that they're online, and that's what everybody's gonna keep telling me. Anuj, it's online. It's online. Like, come on. Like, we have
some
nobody
Henry
representing
G
us. Who's
right
gonna
there.
watch NA? Who's gonna watch the DreamHack Open March NA Finals? Who in their right mind is gonna watch this finals?
I mean, it was gonna be low viewership even if Liquid was in it. Like, what are you telling me? Like, Liquid Extra Salt is really pulling in there, and it actually looks like Extra Salt that ended up winning the event. So, because that was just earlier, it just wrapped up not that long ago. So Extra Salt ended up beating Pain in the finals 3-0. So not even that engaging of a finals to begin with. I would like to think, if I can put a good old NA twist on this, Anuj, I would like to think Liquid knew that these were, tier 2 teams that probably needed the spotlight more than them. So they purposely lost just to give some other team a chance.
Cloud9's been doing that for a year, Tim, and it's not working.
Well, maybe Liquid was built for LAN. Cloud9 was built for LAN, Anuj, so let's not pass judgment, okay?
Hey, Liquid can say they were built for LAN. They've actually done it.
We were told Cloud9 was built for LAN, so that's why they suck. In Valorant, Moon Raccoons has a new roster, but in the sense of Moon Raccoons Black, as they have announced their new competitive roster with a all-female squad. So Moon Raccoons, no starting players or anyone for that matter. But then they decided to make a second team called Moon Raccoons Black for their all-female squad.
Which is like their only team right now.
But that's also their
fine. Like,
only
they
team.
can, like, nothing wrong with that. It's just, man, they had something kind of going there. You wanted to see it, like,
you would just put your all-females on Moon Raccoons and not have Black? Or are we leaving the Moon Raccoons for men who can only play esports?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I wonder if they would use them to compete in their headline events. It doesn't seem like it by the way they made the move.
It's
right?
just another one of those weird, hey, we have a female roster, but we're not confident enough for them to be the actual roster, but we just want to say we have a female roster, so here you go. I don't know where, maybe I'm the jerk here. Maybe females are like, hey, this is cool. We got a shot. But I'm also saying, if I owned an org, I would not be wasting my money on a roster who I didn't think could win. Men, guy or girl. I would just have one roster, and that would be my winning roster. But that's besides the point. In other FPS news, Canadian retires from Siege, being the second big player retiring from Siege here in the last month or two. He played last for Space Station Gaming. One of the very few players, Anuj, who has won the 6 Invitational twice. So
between him and Pengu retiring, it's a lot of history gone within 1 week for Siege. So, when they're retiring, I'm curious, like, hey, I'm moving to another esport, or I'm moving on in life to do something else. That's what I'm kind of curious about, is what are you doing with this retirement? Like, either way, it's fine. It's just, it changes the narrative a little bit.
Right,
it's not,
right.
it doesn't, hey, I'm leaving this game for this game, or I'm just done with these.
Like, hey, I'm like Pangu, I think, is kind of like he just went to streaming and content creation. I think he was just like, I'm taking a break. Like, I can't do this whole practice routine stress thing. But yeah, no.
He's like, I'm taking a break, figuring out Sinatra's situation, and then I'm joining Sentinel.
Yeah. In other news, job listings have been posted on Blizzard's website hinting at a new IP. Well, not really hinting. It literally says like secret project on the job listing. But people are saying it's going to be a new FPS. So I've heard a couple rumors flying around. It's going to be somewhat like a Destiny type game, which would make sense because they had Destiny for a little bit underneath their umbrella, but then it moved out. I've also heard... I mean,
it's a lot of money that they're losing by not having a game like Destiny, right? The microtransactions were probably pretty high in that game with the player base. So
yeah, and I've also heard that
void.
Might be keeping it some... Now, I don't know how IPs work. Like, I don't know if... Because I've heard that it could be expanding the Overwatch universe because there's already so... Like, if you are, like, truly, like, an Overwatch fan and you follow, like, the lore behind it, they have an entire world built, like, backstories and factions and, like, it's there. The story is there.
I do not think they would do that right now with the state that Overwatch is in. That is too risky of a play. Like, too risky.
Yeah, because
like,
people already just have a bad taste in their mouth.
Game that I could see them making, branching off of Overwatch, is an MMO. That's it. If you're gonna take
like, because
Overwatch
they have like
the
trees and everything now for Overwatch 2, so people are saying like, oh, that would make sense then if all of a sudden you have this now more towards this game with like the talent trees and equipment and things like that. Well, again, it's all strictly rumors, but just thought I'd mention it.
If they made an MMO that was an FPS, that would be pretty cool. I don't know if that's where that goes though.
We'll see.
WoW is beating them too well.
We will. Yeah, maybe this is the rumor of it. I feel like every year there's a rumor of Blizzard has been secretly making a new MMO. I feel like for the last decade.
It's been announced that it was canceled. It was supposed to be Overwatch. Overwatch
right, Titans,
was the MMO.
What was it called? Titans? Does that sound right?
It's been a while. Whatever it was.
So that's why people, again, that's where the rumor is like, oh,
MMO.
they're just going to use that and branch off of it. But we'll see. I kind of agree with you, though.
We kept the code. Let's bring this project back to life.
Right. And then Anuj, your news.
Yeah, so my company, I work for a company called Apex Systems. They're doing something really cool that I just wanted to share and get the word out if anybody wants to participate. But they are hosting a Gamers versus Cancer event, and they're going to be doing this all year long. This event is going to consist of 4 games: Apex Legends, Rocket League, Call of Duty, and Fortnite. $20 to enter. All the proceeds go to the American Cancer Society. We will post a link on our Twitter for you to go join if you're interested and want to participate. But 100% of the proceeds go to the American Cancer Society. Deadline to register is March 31st, and the first event will take place April 2nd. So we'll throw that information out there for anybody who would like to join. But when I saw that, I was like, man, I got to get this out there. It's just really cool that they're involved in, something that interests me in my outside life, right? So fun stuff. I hope to be involved more, and if I am, I will, share any news that I can that, may make it more appealing for you to go register and have a good time.
Exciting stuff. So like you said, we will definitely tweet out the details ASAP, and then in the coming days, give you more information. And if you have more questions, then you can definitely hit up Anuj. All right, and there you have it. Episode 313. It's done. It's in the books. Thank you so much for listening or skipping around. Love you all the same. We will be back Wednesday night for some more esports action. Maybe if anything drops with Valorant, we'll be able to talk about that. Anything else happening? I don't know. Seems like this weird stage. Nothing's really...
Esports is going on right now, man. We have Call of Duty kicking back off this week. We have Valorant going on. We have ESL Pro League. So there's a lot of fun stuff happening in esports right now, and
plenty to talk about.
If you got a free weekend ahead of you, you should enjoy it.
So that will be all on the next episode of the Center Ring, aka TCR. aka your favorite esports podcast presented by Alt. Follow us on Twitter at The Center Ring. Support us on Patreon if you feel like you should. We would very much appreciate it. But until then, we'll see you in Discord, and we'll talk to you next time. I'm Tim for Nuge. See ya.